What's up, guys? Well, welcome to today's live training. Today is all about the mindsets you need in order to build serious muscle. I'm not talking about just gaining a couple pounds here and there. I'm talking about the mindsets you really need to gain serious muscle. So if you've been trying for years to try to gain muscle and you haven't been able to get the results that you want, then this session is perfect for you. If you're right at the beginning of your journey and you're just starting to build muscle, then this is going to create and set the foundation for exactly what you need to do in order to start gaining that serious size, I should say. Okay. So by the end of this training, this is what you're going to know. You're going to know the foundations of muscle building, which we're not going to get too much into it because I've already done a ton of sessions on the foundations of muscle building, but we are going to cover all of the foundations. We just won't go into depth. Okay. And then you'll know the day-to-day mindsets that you must have when it comes to muscle building. Okay. And you must have these things. And as a bonus, I'm going to give you some bonus tips on what you can do to really start your muscle building journey and some things not to do for your muscle building journey. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump right into our training. Okay. All right, guys, my name is Aaron Zambrano. I'm lead coach and nutritionist at iFM Coaching. Okay. What we do is we help clients clear up the confusion of nutrition and exercise and show them how to transform in a sustainable way. As we all know, it's really easy to get results really fast, but it's really hard to sustain it. So what we want to show people how to do is how to get the lifestyle that they want and how to get the body that they want. And there is a balancing act that we've got to do. And so that's what we do at iFM Coaching. We show you how you can have both the lifestyle and the body that you want. Okay. So enough about me. We're all here to talk about muscle building. Okay. And that's what we're here for. So normally, anytime I do these sessions and we go into these sessions, I always talk about most common mistakes. Okay. And I always like for people to identify some common mistakes that they're making. That way they can say, okay, wow, that's me. I'm making those things. But for the sake of this session, because it is so long, there's so many different things that we're going to do. We're not going to cover the most common mistakes. Instead, if you're not doing some of these things, then you know that you're making those mistakes. Okay. We're going to keep it that simple. Okay. So let's just jump right into the foundations of muscle building. Okay. Now, again, I'm not going to go into a lot of depth and talk about, why and the sciences and things like that, because we can totally nerd out on the sciences of things. Okay. And it's really easy to nerd out. But one of the things that I've been strongest about over my 22-year career is really talking to people in layman's terms. And so that's really what I want to do. It's going to be a very non-scientific talk, and it's just going to be in layman's terms. Okay. So for all you science nerds out there, we can have a scientific conversation at another time. But for right now, we want to keep everything as simple as possible so the everyday person can truly understand what they need to do in order to start building muscle today. Okay. So, number one, the foundations of muscle building is you have to understand that you have to be in a caloric surplus. Okay. I said this a gazillion times and I love saying it because it's fun, but but any monkey can calculate how many calories you should be eating every single day. Okay. All you got to do is go online. In fact, just go to macros.ifmcoaching.online and you can calculate how many calories you should be eating every single day. So a caloric surplus basically means that you're eating over your maintenance calories. Okay. So when you input all of your numbers into that calculator, it's going to tell you how many calories you need to eat every single day in order to maintain your weight. A caloric surplus means that you're eating over that number. Okay. So if you calculate your numbers and you're at 2,000 calories, then a caloric surplus would be anything above 2,000 calories. Okay. So I like to set it at about 10% above your maintenance calories. And that's a great place to start. Now, there's a lot of other ways that we can do it, and we're not going to get into the philosophy of all the different types of bulking that you can do, but all bulking has one thing in common. You have to be in a caloric surplus. So that's foundation number one. Okay. Number two, you've got to do weight training. Okay. If you want to build muscle. and you've got to do progressive overload. Okay. I said I wasn't going to talk about nerdy stuff, but I just added a nerdy comment. Progressive overload is basically, in other words, you got to challenge your muscles. Okay. You can't go in there and just lift really, really lightweight and not ever challenge yourself. Okay. You've got to challenge yourself and you've got to work on progressively overloading that muscle, meaning doing more weight. Okay. And so you do have to do weight training. You're not going to build muscle just by necessarily going out and running. Okay. Now, if you've never run before and you've been in a wheelchair for a year and then you get up and you start running, yes, you're going to build muscle in your legs. But running is not a muscle building exercise. You might build a little muscle in your calves or something when you go out and run, but that's not a muscle building exercise. Okay. So if you want to build muscle, you've got to do weight training. Okay. All right. And if you're a female and you're nervous and you're scared about doing weights because you think it's going to get you big, just turn off this conversation right now, because I know mentally you're not ready to hear all of this stuff that we're about to say, because that's like, that myth went out in like the 1980s. Okay. So we're not going to talk about that. Okay. If you're a guy and you're like, oh, I don't want to build a lot of muscle and I don't want to look like those guys on TV, you'll never have to worry about it. Trust me. It's so hard to get to that point. So the chances of you just waking up one day and looking like that aren't very likely. Okay. So if you're having that conversation, oh, I don't want to do weights, then I'll just tell you right now, just turn it off and go to another thing that's going to tell you that you can build muscle by doing sit-ups or doing some kind of bogus workouts. Okay. This is not that session. We're going to talk about the real things that are actually going to build muscle, and you got to do weight training. Okay. Now, the other thing when it comes to weight training is volume is key. Okay. The amount of reps that you do, the amount of sets that you do, the total collective amount of reps that you do on a particular muscle, that is key. Okay. You can't just go into the gym and work out and just feel like, oh, I just did it. Okay. There's a lot of people that go do that. Okay. Now, let's take a step back for a second. Okay. If you're just starting your journey in weight training, or you're just starting your journey in exercise, okay, this conversation really isn't for you. Okay. This is for people who have been trying over and over and over again, and they just can't seem to do it. Okay. So if you're at the very, very beginning of your journey, not of muscle building, but your beginning journey of just exercise, okay, then this stuff doesn't apply to you, because here it is. And I've said it a million times, and we believe in this. And at iFM Coaching, we teach this principle. It's called the FIT principle. So if you're just starting off, okay, then the most important thing for you is just get consistent. And it doesn't even matter what you do. Okay. Just get consistent. But if you've been consistent and you've been going to the gym and you've been getting after it and you're not building muscle, then this conversation is for you, and volume is going to be key. You can't just show up to the gym and lift weights and wonder, why is my muscle not building? Well, it's not building because maybe you don't have the right progressive overload. Maybe you don't have the right volume. Okay. So those are things that you really have to know and have to do if you're really serious about building muscle. Again, if you haven't gotten to that point of being frequent, then there's nothing that's going to help you. Okay. None of this conversation that we're going to talk about is going to help you. You've got to get frequent. Okay. Which leads me to my next point. Okay. You've got to get consistent. Okay. You've got to be consistent at doing all of this day in and day out. Now, there's one more thing of the foundations of muscle building that we want to talk about, and that's making sure that you are doing your measurements on a regular basis. Okay. There is no way to tell if you are building muscle if you are not measuring yourself. Okay. We did a session on the nine must-have elements of a body transformation program. And one of the main elements that you have to have is you have to have some kind of measurement system. You've got to know what to measure, how to measure. You got to know your body fat percentage. You got to know your lean body mass. Okay. Your lean body mass is the most important number when you're trying to build muscle. And the only way to get your lean body mass, or the amount of muscle that you have, the only way to do that is you've got to get your weight and you've got to get your body fat, and then you've got to do those calculations. Okay. So you have to know the calculations of your lean body mass. You've got to do your circumference measurements, because you can tell if you're gaining muscle through what your circumference measurements are doing. Okay. So if you're not doing your measurements on a regular basis, then you're just guessing whether you're building a muscle or not. Okay. A lot of times I'll ask people, hey, do you think you're building muscle? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, well, what evidence do you have? What stats do you have? Tell me why you think you're building muscle. Oh, because I'm getting stronger. Okay. And getting stronger does not mean you're building muscle. Okay. In fact, getting stronger and building muscle, those are two totally different training dynamics. They are not the same thing. Now, sometimes they go together, but they don't necessarily need to go together. Case in point, look at the Olympic lifters who are lifting 400, 500 pounds over their head, and they're about 120 pounds. Okay. They don't have big muscles. Okay. They are just super strong. Okay. So, strength is your body's ability to fire as many motor units at one time to contract at one time. And that's how you're strong. Where muscle building or hypertrophy, that's your body's ability to grow your muscle fibers and grow as many muscle fibers as you possibly can. Okay. So you have to know that those are two different things. And if you're not doing your measurements, you don't really know if you are gaining muscle. Okay. So you've got to do your measurements. Okay. And like I said, you just got to get consistent. You got to be consistent with being in a caloric surplus. You got to be consistent with training with in an overload. You got to be consistent with your volume, and you got to be consistent at doing your measurements. Okay. And if you can just do those basic things, those are just the basic foundations. We're going to get into more here in just a second. Okay. But these are the basic things. Okay. So if you want to grow muscle, you must be doing these basic foundational things to help you grow muscle. All right. So now let's go into the day to day mindsets that you must have. Okay. This is one of the lessons that I teach all of my clients anytime that they go into a muscle building program. Okay. Now we're talking about a true muscle building program. This is when your entire attention and focus is on building muscle. Okay. Now, if you're in recomp, if you're trying to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, this is not the conversation for you. Okay. This is a conversation for people who are serious about gaining muscle and their only goal is to gain muscle. Okay. If that is not your goal, then this conversation is not going to apply. And a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about do not apply to you. Okay. So again, if you're in recomp or you're trying to lose body fat and you would like to gain muscle, this is not going to apply to you. This is only for people who are serious about gaining muscle and their one goal is to gain muscle. Okay. Now, I had to say that a million times because so many times people say, well, I want to get leaner and gain muscle. Well, you got to focus on one thing at a time. Okay. And even if you have both of those goals, if you come work with me and your goal is to lower your body fat and increase muscle, we're still going to focus on one thing at a time. Now, over a 6-month time period, you may have lost your body fat. You may have increased muscle. But when we do those in a 1 month at a time, we're still going to focus on one thing at a time, whether it's fat loss or it's muscle building. Okay. So this is if you're serious about doing it for the next 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it is. Okay. So number one, this is probably the biggest thing of all. Your day-to-day mindsets, okay, this is kind of a do not, okay? Do not judge your success on muscle building or do not judge your success on how effective your program is based on how lean you are, okay? Now, I know it sounds so crazy, but so many times, most of us, when we go into a program, okay, whether it's any kind of program that we've ever followed, okay, 90% of the time you have gone into that program for fat loss. Okay. And so when you're in that program for fat loss, you wake up in the morning, you go look at yourself in the mirror, you see if your abs are starting to show up, you see if you're getting the definition in your arms, or if you're getting the definition in your legs, you're getting the split between your quads and your hamstrings. Okay. We start looking for definition and we're looking to see if we're losing body fat. Okay. So when we're in a body fat loss program, and most programs that you've ever followed have been body fat loss programs. Okay. We are looking for signs of body fat loss. However, when you get that same person who's gone through body fat, loss or whatever, and you put them into a muscle building program, one of the biggest mistakes that they make is when they're working on building muscle, they look at themselves and if they're not getting leaner, if their abs aren't showing up more, if, they don't see more definition, then they think something is wrong with their program. Okay. And you have the wrong test. Okay. What we want to do is we want to look at the width. Are you gaining muscle? We're not looking at how you're getting lean. So when I say don't judge your success in muscle building based on how lean you look, don't make that mistake. A lot of people make that mistake of just looking at how lean they are and determining if they're gaining muscle or not. Okay. In fact, that's one of the big struggles that a lot of people have whenever they're starting their muscle building program is still using fat loss type tests to see if they're gaining muscle. Okay. You have to be clear. Your goal is to build muscle. And again, the way that you're going to know if you're building muscle is you've got to take your body fat measurements and you've got to see what your lean body mass is doing. If you're focused on building muscle, you should see your lean body mass go up. You should see the circumference measurements of those body parts that you're trying to grow, you should see them go up. Okay. If you're trying to build your shoulders, you should see them go up. If you're trying to build your butt, you should see your hips go up. If you're trying to build your legs, you should see your circumference measurements go up. Okay. In general. Okay. Now there's a lot of reasons why it won't go up and it'll stay the same, but I don't want to get into that analysis. Okay. But when you are building muscle, we are not focused on losing fat. We are focused on building muscle. So don't judge your success based on how lean you're looking. Okay. In fact, if you're losing fat during a muscle building process, you need to eat more. Okay. You need to eat more and you're going to get more calories. Okay. All right. So cool. So we got that out of the way. That is a huge mistake. That's why I spent so much time on that. Okay. All right. Now, if you're in muscle building, the muscle building mindset that you must have is you must eat all of your meals. Okay. You cannot skip meals if you are trying to build muscle. Okay. So let's just say that in order, we calculate your calories and we calculate your macros and we do all that fun stuff. Okay. And we realize that you need to be eating 2,000 calories. Now I'm going to keep using 2,000 because that's an even number. And I was a science major, not a math major. Okay. So we're going to keep using that. So let's just say that we calculate everything and we realize that 2,000 calories puts you in a caloric surplus. Okay. And let's say you're eating 4 meals a day. I'm just going to make this up. Okay. That means that you have 500 calories per meal. Okay. If you skip a meal, okay, and you skip one meal, which is 500 calories. Okay. Now you're only eating 1,500 calories and you're no longer in that caloric surplus. Okay. You might even be in a caloric deficit if you skip meals. Okay. So it's super important. You do not skip any meals when you are trying to muscle build. You have to get all of your meals in, regardless of what's going on, regardless if it's 10 o'clock at night, regardless if it's 1 o'clock in the morning. You have to get all of your meals in if you're trying to build muscle, and you can't skip meals. Okay. Number two, okay, well, there's no numbers. The next tip, okay, is you can eat more than what's listed on your plan. Okay. So many times, especially if you've if you've gone through a body fat loss program before, you're like, oh man, I have to eat exactly to my macros. I got to eat exactly what's here. If you're in muscle building, it's okay to eat more than what's on your plan. In fact, it's encouraged to eat on your plan. Okay. So if you are hungry, eat more. It's okay to eat more snacks. It's okay to eat more portions than what's listed on your macro plan. Okay. If you're trying to build muscle, listen to your body and eat. Okay. That's one of the very first things that I do when I teach every single client that starts with me, whether they're in muscle building or whether they're in fat loss. I always teach them to listen to their body. It's an element of intuitive eating. Okay. You're listening to your body. If you're hungry, eat food. Eat a healthy meal, eat a healthy snack. Okay. And it's all the more important when you're muscle building because it's all about being in a caloric surplus. So it's okay to eat more meals and more food, more portions than what's listed on your plan. Okay. All right. Number two. I already said number two. Okay. Told you I'm not good at math. All right. The next tip, okay, is it's okay. You don't have to be a prisoner to only eating your meal prep meals. Okay. It's okay to go out to eat. It's okay to sub what I call and what we call at the iFM coaching company is a healthy option. A healthy option is anytime that you're not eating your meal prep meals, something that you cook that's in your portion size, but you're going to go out and eat something that necessarily isn't measured, but it's still healthy food. It could be going to a restaurant. It could be going and eating at a friend's house, but you're still eating healthy foods. You're just not measuring it. So it's okay to sub healthy options for a meal prep meal for something that's exactly to your macros. It's okay to sub a healthy option just as long as you're getting the right amount of usable carbs, the right amount of usable proteins, and the right amount of usable fats. Okay. Now, what I'm not talking about is having a cheat meal at every meal. Okay. I'm not talking about that. Okay. I'm just saying if you want to go out and you want to have some Chipotle or something, okay, it's okay to add more healthy options to your everyday eating plan as long as you're getting enough food. Okay. So you don't have to be a prisoner to only eating meal prep meals. You have a lot more flexibility when you're when you're really in muscle building, because again, at the end of the day, it's all about being in a caloric surplus. Okay. All right. Here's a big thing. We talked about cheat meals, but I tell my clients who are truly in a muscle building phase, if you're truly all about building muscle, you can legitimately have a cheat meal every single day, but with this rule that you must eat all of your meals first. Okay. As we all know, guys, there's two basic ways that you can go into a bulk, right? You can go into what I call the regular bulk, and the regular bulk is the traditional thing that you see a lot of people do. That's where they just eat burgers and fries and they just eat pizza and they're just eating trash food all the time. Okay. A regular bulk is when you do that. Okay. And chances are in a regular bulk, you're going to gain a ton of fat. And that's not necessarily something that's appealing for a lot of people. Okay. There's a lot of people who want to gain muscle, but they don't want to gain fat. Okay. So a regular bulk is probably not right for you if you're trying to stay relatively lean. Okay. Then you have what's called a clean bulk or a lean bulk. Okay. You often hear referred to the same thing. And that's where you're trying to build as much muscle as you can, but try to keep your body fat down. Now, you're not trying to lose body fat, but you're just trying to maintain your body fat and be okay with your body fat going up just a little bit. Okay. So if you're that person who wants to do what's called a clean or a lean bulk, okay, and you want to keep your body fat relatively the same, then what my suggestion to you is make it okay to eat a cheat meal or a cheat food just as long as you eat all of your other meals first. Typically, cheat meals aren't going to offer our body a lot of nutrients that we can use to build muscle or that we can use to starve out our fat, where our regular meals do. Our regular, chicken and rice and broccoli and almonds or whatever it is that you eat, okay, those things, every single calorie that you have in that food is going to go into building muscle or starving out your fat. Okay. But when you start getting into things like pizza and hamburgers, those things don't necessarily all go to building muscle or starving out your fat. You're going to get a lot of excess calories and most likely going to end up storing a lot more body fat. Okay. But in muscle building, it's okay to eat that, but we got to make sure that we eat all of the nutrients that we need first. So if we can eat all of our meals first, which we know are all going to be usable nutrients, then anything we want to add on top of that is okay. Okay. Now, here's the thing. When you eat all of your meals, the chances of you wanting a cheat meal at the end of the day aren't very likely. Okay. But if you get to that point where you ate, let's just stick with that 4 meals number, and you ate all 4 of your meals in the exact portions, in the exact macros, and you want to have some pizza, then make it okay to go have some pizza. Okay. We're talking about muscle building here. Okay. We're talking about being in a caloric surplus. Okay. So it's okay to have another cheat meal if you make sure you eat all of your meals first. Okay. All right, and then you can start adding things like processed carbs like breads, pastas, things like that. As long as you're getting, whole grains. Okay. Now again, this is more for people who are not going through the regular bulk. If you're going through a regular bulk, you can do whatever you want. Okay. But if you're going through a lean bulk, which is what most people want to do, okay, then it's okay to start adding more processed carbs. Now, obviously, whole foods are going to be better for you. Your body's going to use it more efficiently, and you're less likely to store any of that stuff as fat or have excess calories. Okay. So whole foods are better, but it's okay to add whole grains and processed carbs like whole wheat pasta, things like that if you don't have a gluten allergy. Okay. All right, cool. So I'm going on, and we've talked enough about food. Now let's go ahead and go into exercise. Okay. Exercise is really simple. Okay. If you are trying to build muscle, okay, then the mindset that you need to have is to weight train every day you possibly can. Okay. This does not mean that you must weight train 7 days a week. It means that you must weight train every day you possibly can. That means if you can realistically only weight train 4 days in your schedule, then weight train 4 days. Okay. If you can weight train 5 days, okay, then weight train 5 days. Okay. We all have limitations to our schedule. Okay. Now, obviously, there's a way that you can do 7 days a week and never overtrain. Okay. So that's very possible. I know a lot of people, in fact, myself, I work out and do weights 6 to 7 days a week. Okay. And I never get to a point of overtraining because I know how to split up my workouts. But the mindset is to exercise every day, or I should say, do weight training every day you possibly can. The more that you can do your weight training, the more muscle growth you will potentially have. Okay. Now, we're going to get into rest and recovery and all of that stuff here in a second, but we're not going to get too far into it. But I'm just speaking for the general person. Okay. The general person has never, ever maxed out the number of days that they can actually weight train. Okay. Now, if you're advanced and you've been doing bodybuilding shows forever, you're probably not even listening to this conversation, anyways. But that, this conversation isn't for you. Okay. If you've been competing for years, this isn't for you, and you're probably not even on this show right now. But for the general person has never maxed out the number of days that they can realistically do when it comes to weight training. So if you want to build muscle, have the mindset to do weight training as many days as you possibly can per week. Okay. Now, when it comes to those training sessions, okay, your training sessions, your goal is to be at max intensity for every weight training session. We talked about this earlier. Okay. You can't just go into the gym and just lightly go through it. You must challenge yourself every single set. Okay. Don't say, oh, I'm lifting 65 pounds and I'm doing 6 sets. So let me take it easy on the first couple of sets. That way I can do all of my sets at 65 pounds. Okay. No, that's not how you do it. Okay. You have to challenge yourself. Now, obviously, do a proper warm up, do all of that, make sure that your body is ready to start being intense. But then once you get into your session, you've got to get intense. You can't go in there and lollygag. Okay. I have so many people, okay, who come to me and they're like, oh, I'm not building muscle. I'm not building muscle. And then I'll go through and I ask them, okay, well, are you working out as hard as you can? Are you doing it at every set? Are you maxing out whatever your rep ranges say? Oh, no. I'm like, what are you doing? Well, I'm just going in there and lifting. Okay. No, you can't just go in there and lift. Okay. When you're trying to build muscle, yes, it matters that you showed up. Yes, that's a big deal, and that's always going to matter. Okay. But if you're trying to build muscle, you got to make the workout count, and you got to get in there and you got to bust it up. So your goal has to be to go in there and be as intense as you possibly can with every single weight training session. Okay. Now, if for whatever reason you can't be at max intensity for the session, then just finish the workout. Okay. Just finish the workout. You don't need, if you have one of those days, we all have those days, guys. Like, I'll be honest with you. I work out 6 to 7 days a week. Let's just say I'm at 6 days a week. Okay. I probably have anywhere between 4 to 5, like super massive, amazing workouts per week. And there's 1 to 2 a week where it's just, I'm not going to cuss because this is a family show, but it's kind of poor. Okay. And it just happens. Okay. But it's okay. I just complete the workout. I finish the workout. Actually, ending the workout has more psychological downside than finishing a bad work or finishing a low intensity workout. Okay. So I always feel better, and my clients always feel better just by finishing the workout, even if it was high intensity at the beginning and then they petered off towards the end, than it is to just finish the workout in the middle of it. And then they end up saying, oh, I only did half my workout. And that ends up having more of an issue with you. So just always finish your workout, but your goal should always be to train at your max intensity for every rep, for every set. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing about exercise is minimize your cardio. Okay. Too many times I have people come in and say, oh, I'm trying to build muscle. I'm trying to build muscle. Okay. Well, let me see what you're doing for your exercise. And what they're doing is they're doing 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours of cardio. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, you can't do that much cardio if you're serious about muscle building. Okay. You've got to minimize your cardio. Okay. In the session that we had about lean bulk, okay, we talked about the formula that you want to have. And essentially, you want to, what is the max amount of cardio that you can do where you won't lose muscle? Okay. So it's kind of a weird statement. Okay. But you really just want to minimize your cardio altogether, because too much cardio will inhibit your body's ability to gain muscle. So you got to make sure that you lower your cardio when you're focused on building muscle. Okay. Now, probably the most important tip of all when it comes to muscle building is prioritize recovery, prioritize sleep. Okay. You have to sleep, guys. You have to put a priority on sleep. Okay. There's all those memes out there. It's like, as you get older, you'd rather be sleeping than going out and partying or whatever. There's all these funny memes out there about that, right? But sleep is crucial to your overall muscle building. That is actually where you build muscle. You build muscle in your sleep. Okay, that's where your body does its recovery. That's where your body releases growth hormone naturally. So it can help you grow and it can help you recover. So you have to have the right amount of sleep, not just the right amount of sleep, but high quality sleep is actually really important. So if you're not tracking your sleep, if you're not monitoring your sleep, then you're just kind of guessing. Okay, yes, time is important of how many hours you sleep, but also your sleep quality is super important. And if you see this little thing on my wrist here, the only reason I have this is so it can tell me how many minutes of deep sleep I'm getting every night. It can tell me how many minutes of REM sleep I'm getting every night, how many minutes of light sleep I'm getting every night, because I want to make sure that I prioritize my recovery, and it starts with sleep. Okay. Sleep is super important. I could do an entire session just on sleep. Okay. All right, cool. So those are my main tips on how to be in the mindsets to have when it comes to muscle building. Okay. So before we go into a bonus tips, okay, I want to see your comments. Okay. Have you identified anything that you are not doing and you're not doing well and you constantly make the mistake over and over again? Okay. Have you identified? Go ahead and comment below. Okay. Guys, like I said before, I have done a full training on muscle building. So if you want my full training on muscle building, go ahead and comment below full training, and I'll be more than happy to send over my training to you. So if you're interested in receiving my full training on muscle building, go ahead and comment below full training, and I will send that over to you. Okay. Coralie says, Coralie says, if she's not competing, then measurements are not consistent. Um, yeah, Coralie is. So let me give you a little background on Coralie. Coralie is, believe, don't quote me on this, but a 5 or 6 time world champion in the competition world. Okay, so she lives on a different plane than than most of us, and so she could probably get away with not measuring on a consistent basis because she's already living at a really high level. But I'll tell you this, I've been working with Coralie, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. And when we get into the muscle building phase or just any phase, we are constantly looking at what her lean body mass is doing, especially if she's trying to build muscle. And that's a great way for her to stay motivated as well, because since she's worked with me, I don't know, she's gained, I don't know, 15, 20 pounds of muscle, something crazy. She's gained a lot of muscle, but she's changed her overall physique. And she had been competing for, I don't know, 15 years prior to working with me. And we've done a lot. And a big part of that success is the fact that, whether she wants to or not, I make her send me her measurements all the time. Every single month, she's sending me her measurements, whether she wants to or not. Okay. All right. So now let's get into our bonus tips. Okay. So, bonus tips. Let's talk about supplementation. You do not need supplements in order to grow muscle. Okay. In fact, I wanted to prove this point so much that in 2019, I decided that I was going to compete at the Fitness Asia Championships, and I was going to do the Model Asia Championships. And I decided I was going to compete in that show. I was 39 years old, and I did it for many reasons. But one of the reasons why I did it is because I wanted to show everybody that you can change your body, that you can totally alter your physique. You can get a six pack. You can get all of that without taking one supplement. I did that. I trained for that entire show without taking any supplements at all, not even a whey protein. Okay. And I was able to rapidly change my body. You do not need supplements in order to grow muscle. Now, do they help? Yeah, they can definitely help and they can definitely assist in muscle building, but you definitely don't need it. Okay. And you don't need any kind of radical things in order to grow. So if somebody tells you that you need to take supplements in order to grow, they're either they're trying to sell you something or they're not very knowledgeable. It doesn't have to happen. If that goes against your values and against your belief system, then don't do it. Okay. But they can absolutely help if you know the right things to take. Okay. This is probably my favorite bonus tip of all. Okay. You don't need to use steroids. You don't need to use any other performing enhancing drugs in order to gain muscle. Okay. Now, I say it all the time. I coach drug-free athletes. Okay, as you guys know, I have part of 20% of my clients are competition clients. These are people who obviously do competitions. 80% of my clients are everyday people. Okay, all of my competitor clients, the people that you see on my Instagram, the people that you see all over my page, the ones that have amazing physiques, they are all drug free. I am drug free. Okay. I do not take drugs and I don't need to take drugs. It's not important. Okay. I don't need to take steroids. I don't need to take testosterone. I don't need to take growth hormone. I don't need to take SARMs. Nobody needs to take those things. Okay. So if somebody tells you that you have to do those things in order to grow muscle, you have to run. Okay. Call this a PSA. Okay. Public service announcement. Okay. You do not have to do that in order to gain muscle. Now, if you are just looking for a shortcut, if you're just looking for all those things, okay, and you don't really care about your health too much, okay, fine. Okay. But it's still not a shortcut. You're still going to have to eat right. You're still going to have to train hard. You're still going to have to follow a lot of this stuff. Okay. But you don't need steroids or other performance enhancing drugs. And don't let anybody convince you of that. Again, if that goes against your values and your belief system, don't do it. You can do it all naturally with food and with exercise. Second tip is you have to know that muscle building takes time. Okay. Fat loss, you can lose 1 pound of fat a week. Okay. In a month, you can lose 5, 6, 7 pounds of fat in a month. Okay. But muscle building, for an advanced person, if you gain 10 pounds of muscle in a year, like you should be ecstatic because that is like crazy amounts of muscle to build. Okay. So it does take time to build muscle. Muscle building is more of a lifestyle. Okay. It's more of a lifestyle than it is just an overall goal. Okay. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to just gain this much muscle and stop. No, it is a lifestyle because it takes so long. If you truly want to build muscle, you've got to make muscle building a lifestyle. It's got to be something that you do every day. It's got to be something that you do on autopilot. It's got to be something that you just wake up and you know that I'm going to do these things in order to build muscle because it does take so much time. And most people who have been lifting forever, okay, they will tell you that they have never reached their full potential and the goals that they have for muscle building because it's just a lifelong endeavor. It doesn't mean that you don't enjoy the process, that you're sad all the time because you're not reaching your ultimate goal of fitness. It just means that you've created this a lifestyle and you're just every day you're waking up to build muscle because muscle building takes time and you have to enjoy the process. If you're in a rush to build muscle, you're probably going to quit before you ever reach your potential. Okay. You have to take your time. Okay. All right. That's going to wrap up everything that we've talked about. All right, guys, if you're interested in having a one-on-one conversation with me and you want to talk about your goals, you want to discover your problems, and you want to know how to overcome them, all you got to do is comment below. Let's talk, and we will set up a time to have a one-on-one conversation. And I can guarantee you this, that after that conversation, you will be very clear on what your real problem is, not the self-diagnosis that you gave yourself. You will be very clear on what your real problem is. Once we know your real problem, you will know exactly what you've got to do to overcome that and the steps that you've got to take to start making your transformation. So if you want to set up a time to have a one-on-one conversation with me, just go ahead and comment below. Let's talk and let's get after it. Have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you next time.